a poor young country boy, Mother Nature's son. All day long I'm sitting singing songs for everyone. Sit beside a mountain stream, see her waters rise. Listen to the pretty sound of music as she flies. Do 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 do. Find me in my field of grass, Mother Nature's son. Swaying daisies sing a lazy song beneath the sun. Do 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 do. Yeah yeah
Good day to you, and welcome to the online worship service of the Unitarian Universalist Congregation Santa Rosa. My name is Chris Bell, and I am the minister of this congregation, a progressive and inclusive spiritual community that is dedicated to celebrating life, empowering people, caring for one another, and helping to build a better world. We're part of the proud tradition of Unitarianism, Universalism, and Unitarian Universalism that is centuries old here in the United States, guided not by dogma, but by 7 principles that lead us in our ethical living. There's about 350 of us official members who pledge their time, talent, and treasure to supporting our community, and hundreds more who are part of our larger family. We welcome you wherever you are on your spiritual journey, whatever your background, whoever you may be, and hope that you will find a home here among us. The door is open, figuratively, of course. The actual doors are closed as we continue to find our way forward step by step in the presence of the pandemic and the absence of a federal government. Today's service is offered in the spirit of our 6th source. There are 6 sources that we name in Unitarian Universalism. The 6th one, the last to be added, is Spiritual Teachings of Earth-Centered Traditions, which celebrate the sacred circle of life and instruct us to live in harmony with the rhythms of nature. Nature, the source of all our sources, and a place to which we can always turn in difficult times. I hope this service is of use to you, inspiring to you, and brings you comfort and joy. Underneath it, here on the YouTube page or on our Facebook page, you'll find lots of links that will refer you to some of the things that we talk about in the service today. Check that out. If you're able to send in a donation, we appreciate it. Please like us on Facebook and visit our webpage as well at uusantarosa.org. And thank you so much for watching this and being a part of our community. Bless you.
Our chalice lighting words are called Invitation for a Deeper Listening. And I'll light the chalice. It's time for a deeper listening. Pause to listen to the birds again. Step back to listen to your footsteps and where they do not tread so lightly. Listen to your heartbeat and what it is craving. A more steady rhythm? Hear the earth's heartbeat, the long hand of time, each second a human lifetime. Listen to the people who walked this land before. Listen before they go hoarse, before they lose their breath, before wisdom is lost. Listen to the reminders. Water is life. Those descendants who call to their ancestors, their names around the fire. Listen to them. Listen.
Yet will the glowing wheels No rain is dimmed, nor atom born. The oldest forces know, and fresh the rose on yonder throne gives back the hands in bloom.
Here's a reading from our hymnal. It's number 551, if you'd like to read along. Earth, Teach Me, from the Ute Indians of North America. Earth, teach me stillness, as the grasses are stilled with light. Earth, teach me suffering, as old stones suffer with memory. Earth, teach me caring, as parents who secure their young. Earth, teach me courage, as the tree which stands all alone. Earth, teach me limitation, as the ant which crawls on the ground. Earth, teach me freedom, as the eagle which soars in the sky. Earth, teach me resignation, as the leaves which die in the fall. Earth, teach me regeneration, as the seed which rises in the spring. Earth, teach me to forget myself, as melted snow forgets its life. Earth, teach me to remember kindness, as dry fields weep with rain.
One, each person is worthwhile, to be kind in all you do. 3, let's help each other grow, 4, keep searching for the true. 5, each person has a say. 6, what for a peaceful world. 7, the web of life's the way that will bring us back to you.
It starts as a whisper, a word on the air. It can't quite be heard, but you know that it's there. As gentle as sunlight, as tenacious as hail, in its route to the heart, it could not but prevail. And the people looked up from their day-to-day tasks, their day-to-day jobs, and their day-to-day masks. They heard, or they felt, where the whisper could lead, and they looked with eyes wide at what that might mean. And once they could see it, they hadn't a chance to resist the sweet song of the deep spell it cast. But the feeling it brought them at first glance was pain, as they lifted their eyes on the land they had claimed, since they saw at last, as if raised from a dream, they were almost alone on the land and the sea. But the trees had almost gone, and the bees had almost gone, and the creatures in their shells by the seas had almost gone, and the people felt sad as they saw their new earth, but they knew this was it, one wild chance for rebirth. Breaking new ground, seeds rolling down, smell of the earth on your hands and your brow. No time for sorrow, we're building tomorrow. The sound of things growing now keeps us around. As the wildness grows and the deep wood grows, and the sense that the future's come to meet you grows. There's no chance we can rest. We must do our best. This moment can lead us back home. That's our test. It starts as a whisper, a word on the air. It can't quite be heard, but you know that it's there. It then spoke like thunder until we all moved, and we could, and we did, and it's done. She's renewed.
We are Unitarian, Universalist, people of the open mind, loving heart, and the helping hand.
Hello, I'm Barbara Kezur, one of your lay chaplains. Milestones are where we share our joys and sorrows with the congregation, joyous occasions as well as the more tender events we hold close to our hearts. You're invited to light a candle to remember those you are holding near to your heart. I'll light one here, and if you'd like, pause the video to light your own candle. Sadly, we have not enough joy and much sorrow to share this week. Lucia Kazulis shared, "Please send healing prayers and thoughts for my friend Joanne, who has just had a brain tumor removed last weekend. She is already in the middle of her third bout of chemo for metastasized ovarian cancer, and now this." Joanne has volunteered at our bar tables at our yearly UU fundraiser for us for the past 2 to 3 years. She'd been wearing hats to cover her bald head. I suspect that if she is available, the very next time we hold the fundraiser, she will step up and volunteer again. It's just the kind of person she is. I am honored to be considered her friend. We will hold Joanne in our hearts as she heals. Susan Panttaja wrote, "David Templeton's stepmother, Joan Templeton, passed away on Monday, July 13th in Whittier, California. Joan married David's dad, Gene, when David was 10 years old, and she was devoted to Gene for 45 years. We will always remember her looking stylish in matching suit, shoes, and hat, and we will miss her kind, quiet, and unflagging support of Gene and the whole family. She sounds like she was a well-put-together stepmother who will be very much missed." From Peggy Spofford, "My late grandson, Ryan Charles Blout, would have turned 26 yesterday, July 18th. We miss him terribly, but know this is where he wanted to be. We carry his memory in our hearts. He has recovered from brain cancer, but the radiation treatments destroyed the area in his brain where he could deal with loss and grieving. He never got over having to put his beloved dog down. His sad grandmother, Peggy Spofford." We're so sorry to hear about your grandson, Peggy. It's a very tough experience to lose a beloved grandson. From Rev Chris, "I'm sorry to have to report the news that our friend and fellow member, Sandy Bandy, has died. Sandy was found in her apartment yesterday afternoon after failing to respond to calls from her daughter for several days, and she seems to have passed peacefully while resting on the couch. She had been suffering from a variety of ailments, including a very difficult problem with her digestion that had landed her a long stay in the hospital this past month. But her death still comes as a big surprise. I talked to her on the phone just last week, and her dear friend Jamie Kerr checked on her almost every day, so we are all reeling a bit. Sandy faced many challenges in her life that limited her in different ways, but she usually managed to retain her open heart, quick wit, and good humor through it all. She deeply appreciated being connected to our congregation and was grateful for the warm welcome she received from so many of you. I remember Sandy. She would sit down next to John and I in the front pews, and she was always so friendly to us." Also from Rev Chris, "I'm sorry to have to tell you that our fellow member and friend, Bob Barrows, has died. He passed peacefully on Saturday in the early afternoon, surrounded by loving family, and with his beloved Janet right by his side, as always. Bob was a stand-up guy in every way: kind, devoted, thoughtful, curious, steady, and gracious. Over the years, I got to work closely with him as he served on the board, the Committee on Shared Ministry, and the maintenance team, and I shall miss him deeply. It's good to hear that Bob was surrounded by family and Janet as he left this world. It sounds like he gave a lot to our community. If you have something to share, please send it to laychaplains@uusantarosa.org. Let us know if you want it included in this online service or just in the weekly compilation and the Milestones book. If you have a private concern, we'd love to talk to you. We lay chaplains are Paula Hammett, Lucia Milburn, Bruce Hope, Tamara Murrell, Mary Lil Lee, Al Miner, and myself, Barbara Kezur. We give thanks for the sharing of these milestones, for they remind us of our shared humanity and common fate and inspire our compassion and care. May all our joys be magnified as we delight together in the good news, and may all our sorrows be eased as we carry them together in community. May you who are searching for courage, comfort, faith, and hope find what you seek, and may all people grow in wisdom, compassion, and love, that the whole world might live with justice and in peace. Take care, be safe, and be well. Bye-bye.
We make time in every service for some quiet contemplation to give us a chance to return to our deep well, to our source, to the holy power of love that lies within, to take a rest, a deep breath, whatever we may need. I'll invite you to join me in a prayer. I'll make a little space in the time of the prayer for you to lift up any names that might be on your mind. When the prayer is over, I'll ring the bell and we'll sit in silence together for 3 minutes or so, come out with the bell, and then we'll sing together Spirit of Life. So please pray with me. Great Spirit of life and love, we feel your presence among us in our longing for peace and justice, in our open-heartedness, our desire to care for one another, and in the glories and beauties of nature all around us. Thank you for the gift of this day, for the sun that warms us, for the water that courses through us as our blood, for the air we breathe, for each other, for the great family of beings, the great web of life. Thank you for the gift of life. Thank you for the teachings of wise elders who instruct us to live in harmony with life and to care for this earth and to care for each other. May we heed their call. We lift up today with love in our hearts, our friends, our family, all those we know all around the globe who are suffering, who are struggling, who are homeless, who are alone, who are ill, who are facing the ravages of the virus. Let all who need it find courage and strength in the power of love, and may we find the capacity and will to care for everyone we can. We are praying specifically today for healing for Joanne, for healing for our friend and fellow member, Reverend Shirley Rank, in a rehab facility with a fracture in her back and in great pain. Please let her find relief. We are praying for David and Susan, grieving the loss of Joan and for their family. We are praying for Peggy, grieving Ryan, We are praying for all of us, grieving the loss of Bob and of Sandy. Please bless their families with comfort and strength. We are all grieving the loss of John Lewis, a great servant and a warrior for justice. We lift up our own names. And in addition to those we've named, we pray for ourselves. May we also find courage and strength and the will to serve and to survive in these hard times. We are praying for everyone who is fighting the virus, for parents and children who are particularly carrying the burden of our strange response to these dark times. We are praying for everyone on the front lines in healthcare, grocery stores, all essential businesses, for those who are leading us, who must make difficult decisions. We are praying that this land can come together, find its common sense, that all who desire to find a different way for us to be together will keep working for that better future. We have all found ourselves angry, short-sighted, short-tempered. Forgive us. Let us forgive ourselves. Let us forgive each other. Let us learn to live in a sacred covenant with one another and with the earth. And help us be, even as we face our challenges, glad to be alive. Help us know our power. Help us be kind to one another and forgive one another. And please, may the rule of love, peace, and justice come to this earth. Blessed be, and Amen.
suben lama hasta molia la justicia de la vida arraigame, libérame, fuente de amor, ven a mí, ven a mí. Spirit of life, come unto me, sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion, blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me.
Hello, my name's Aphrodite, and I'm your worship associate for this service on the gifts of nature. A new phrase I've been using lately is BC, before COVID. Before COVID, I used to love going to a coffee shop amongst the hustle and bustle of people to sit in a corner to do my work or write. Now, after COVID, I often sit on my back porch amongst the hustle and bustle of the ever-changing trees and wildlife, mostly birds, chittering squirrels hopping through the large oaks, California Bay, and pines behind my house. There's so much tranquility here in this busyness. Things are going along as they should, naturally, unaffected by humans' follies. And even more so after the cars and planes and people took a step back out of the limelight. Now, some of the human world has taken up more space again, but my backyard still sings, and I try to listen. I feel like one silver lining from this challenging time is the invitation to listen more. I feel called to listen to the nature in my backyard and to listen deeper than that, to hear the history of my own backyard. In my personal work to become anti-racist, I have begun to dig into the history of the land I love so much here in Northern California, where I was born and raised. In this listening, I have learned, for someone like myself, with a colonizing ancestry and education, I had been taught a false narrative about the land and the peoples who lived and continue to live here for thousands of years. But more importantly, and to take full accountability, I avoided learning more about our painful history. It made me uncomfortable. And so I rested in my white privilege and chose to avoid the stories that were difficult to stomach. But choosing not to see the atrocities dishonors the people who lived and continue to live with the effects of colonialism and white supremacy. I now seek to listen deeper and with an open mind and loving heart to recognize how my old belief that atrocities happened somewhere else, like only in the South, or so long ago in history that they hardly pertain to today, was false. This genocide and enslavement happened everywhere. Yes, including my own, our own backyards. and not that long ago. Black, Indigenous, people of color's stories have been and continue to be written out of history, and worse. Their stories were whitewashed. The stories were manipulated with a colonizer's pen. The current social uprisings have helped me pledge to listen to these stories, as hard as it may be to do so. In that pursuit, there's a movement that I had been working to understand and include in my life called land acknowledgement. In my listening and reading, I have heard the call from Indigenous people who are asking, as a step toward including those stories back into the current history, that we name and honor the people whose land we are on when we gather on that land. This is just one step to decolonization and opening ourselves to a more accurate public consciousness around the true story of where we live and gather. Here, where I live in Sonoma County, we are on land that was once inhabited mostly by Southern Pomo and coastal Miwok people. As a land acknowledgement for our UU congregation building in Santa Rosa, I now offer these words. I want to respectfully acknowledge the Southern Pomo people who have stewarded this land throughout the generations. And as an offering, California Bay Laurel, an indigenous plant and one that I have a relationship with. Let me just say that I have a mirror, and with a large dose of humility, I hope a metaphorical mirror as well. I see that I am a white person, speaking the name of indigenous lands. I do so with the utmost respect and honoring of the people and plants and animals who live on these lands. For me, these words have deep meaning, and they are a pledge to listen, honor, and care for the land I feel fortunate to walk on. I also know that it is just a step on the path to a deeper show of alliance and informed action. As I work to educate myself about the history of the people of this land, I am committed to listening deeply to what the land and people are asking. On this path of listening to Native voices, I'm reminded of the most incredible book by Robin Wall Kimmerer called Braiding Sweetgrass, Indigenous Wisdom, Scientific Knowledge, and the Teaching of Plants. Although she's not native to this area, her teachings are universal to those of us who see nature as part of the interconnected web of all existence, as our UU 7th principle inspires. Dr. Kimmerer writes, "It's easy to think that the earth has been broken, that the land is broken, but it's our relationship with the land that is broken." Then she says, "It was through her actions of reciprocity, the give and take with the land, that the original immigrant became indigenous. For all of us, becoming indigenous to a place means living as if your children's future mattered, to take care of the land as if our lives, both material and spiritual, depended on it." People, we have lots of mending of relationships to do. If we are to become a more just society, we must include reciprocity with the land and all people. Social justice is environmental conservation. That is clearer than ever as we see that families whose lives are impacted the most by COVID-19 are the ones who have suffered oppression for generations. There's no doubt that justice for the earth and justice for the people are interconnected. We are people of the earth, and the earth has gifted us with her bounty. But we must reciprocate with tender care, as many have done for thousands of years before. I have faith for myself and others that we can learn from nature. The first step is to listen. Blessed be.
Ancient Mother, I hear you calling. Ancient Mother, I hear your song. Ancient Mother, I feel your laughter. Ancient Mother, I taste your tears. Ancient Mother, I hear you calling. Ancient Mother, I hear your song. Ancient Mother, I feel your laughter. Ancient Mother, I taste your tears. Ancient Mother, I hear you calling. Ancient Mother, I hear your song. Ancient Mother, I feel your laughter. Ancient Mother, I taste your tears.
Hey again, everybody. I so wanted to preach to you from outside in my backyard where the greetings were filmed, and a space in the natural world that I love so much, but it got hot and noisy as the day went on, and so here we are in my kitchen. But I've brought a little of my backyard in for us to share. I feel blessed. I feel blessed in so many ways. One way I feel blessed is that I have pretty much always been what you might call a nature lover. So much so that actually the idea of having any other kind of relationship to nature other than love is actually foreign to me. I would wish that every person in the whole world would call themselves a nature lover. And I was blessed. I was taken on hikes and went camping a lot with my dad. And my mom also loved the natural world. She bequeathed me the effort to see as many national parks as possible before I die. And she bequeathed me the desire to take care of plants, which tragically, as those who help me tend my garden know, is a lesson I am still struggling to learn. I love nothing more than a walk in the woods or a hike along the coast on the Corman Trail. Every time such a thing occurs, I feel like I'm being given a remarkable gift. I'd rather do that than almost anything other than possibly seeing live music. And I recognize how privileged I am, how fortunate to live in a place where nature is readily available, to have the resources to hop in some kind of vehicle and get out to it away from the city. I'm very blessed. And I know that my nature-loving character is a little bit one-sided. It's sort of easy to come by, as it were, because I've never actually had to extract a living from the land. I've never watched my farm die because of a drought or had my baby goats eaten up by a mountain lion. Nature can be harsh as well as giving and beautiful. I recognize that, and I know that my nature love is very modern, very city-based, kind of rosy, and actually in the paved and automotive environment of a city, it's frequently a little bit distant or second-hand. But Born of that nature-loving childhood, I guess, I have developed a sharp eye for spotting wildlife, which to me is one of the great pleasures of life. Spying a deer and her fawn off on a distant hillside, or noting the seals down there sunbathing on a distant rocky crag. One of my great memories here in California was of encountering a fox out at Walker Ranch. It was actually during a UUCSR board retreat, and we came to each other, probably 50 yards apart, but had a long and respectful, silent, staring encounter that I will treasure. And the way those encounters with particularly the living sentient beings in the natural world, or animals, made me a birder. Somewhere along the line, I became something of a serious birder. I have my eyes open at all times for them. And I'm really blessed because my neighborhood allows me to walk every day down to the rural cemetery, which is, a treasure trove of local and migrating birds. In just the last few days, I've seen flycatchers and nuthatches, and as always, dark-eyed juncos, who are my favorite. We have a couple of them that live at the Glazer Center, and I'm certain they come and say hello to me. Bluebirds are there right now, actually. And I noticed when our great pause began with the outset of the pandemic. A friend of mine, an activist, uses that phrase, the great pause. Isn't that a wonder? That's Pause. It's a great way to think of what was thrust upon us, particularly in those earliest days when the madness of mask debates and failed approaches to the pandemic weren't consuming us, when we all just shut it down. And what I noticed once I let myself leave the house and get back down to the cemetery to look for those birds was how much more I could hear them. It was genuinely startling. If you're raised in the city, as I was, Cleveland, Ohio, for example, and you ever finally get out to the desert and look up, and you realize that the Milky Way isn't some conjecture of astronomers, it's like right there, and your mind gets blown. That's what this bird song was like. I mean, it felt like my own hearing had improved. It was that startling and that nourishing, as evocative of that feeling of awe and wonder, which is the basis of all spirituality and religion, as a view of the Milky Way might be. And oh, Lord, do we all need, I think, to hear the message of the birds, to hear the message of nature, of the natural world right now, to hear freshly, more deeply, the coast, the lakes, the stones, the clouds, the birds. I need nature to speak to me right now. And I treasure when it does, because honestly, almost everything human that I'm hearing or listening to these days seems suspect. Even the perspectives of the side I'm on, as it were, are adding to a cacophony of confusion and turmoil. And it seems like it's suspect because we have forgotten what it means to be human, because we have forgotten how to listen to nature. And if we can't listen to nature, we can't hear each other. We have come to such a distorted relationship with our environment and with the natural world, and that's exactly mirrored in our distorted relationship to our fellow human beings. Please, don't get me wrong. although humans are bumming me out in general, many humans, as always, are also deeply, deeply impressing me. One remarkable, unexpected byproduct of the great pause has been, after that deep breath, this great resistance that has emerged, this great swell of demand for justice, for a changed society, for actual fairness, a call to get real, finally, about the flaws and the unfulfilled promise of American culture and society. We're getting real about the experience of Black people in this country, for example. And there's no reason to stop there. And the great resistance is not seemingly going to let us stop. Now the experiences of all marginalized people are rising to the center. We all might look together at them, and this includes indigenous people. We're getting real about their experience in our nation's history and in our current culture. And maybe, as I'm getting real with the listening to the message of the birds, maybe we can get real with the deep and utterly necessary teachings of the indigenous traditions as well. And I'm reluctant to say anything about indigenous people as some kind of broad category. Broad categories in general are something we should probably be wary of. And the category, the useful linguistic tool of saying indigenous people, encompasses a group of fantastic diversity. Fantastic diversity. And yet there is, I have discovered, a remarkable similarity in one core part of what we might call indigenous traditions. And what are a core part of that wisdom, that our own sixth source as Unitarian Universalists captures as celebrating the sacred circle of life and living in harmony with the rhythms of nature. That is the essence of indigenous teaching about what people are and how they should relate to the natural world. And I'll go ahead and use that category, indigenous, because, as I've discovered, indigenous people themselves refer to themselves frequently as indigenous. Of course, they speak to their specific nation or tribe or clan, but that category of indigenous does speak to each of those different groups, even if they could not be more different from one another on the outside. There are estimated to be about 5,000 currently surviving separate indigenous cultures in the world. That includes some 370 to 500 million people spread across 90 countries. That number is much less than the some 13,000 that researchers think existed before the time of colonization, but nevertheless, a huge and remarkably diverse group of people that created and speak the overwhelming majority of our world's languages. I've spent the week reading all sorts of indigenous activists and learning about their work. Most notably, Robin Wall Kimmerer, whom Aphrodite mentioned to you early and who she turned me on to, whose lectures are available online, I commend them to you, and whose book, Braiding Sweetgrass, is a modern classic of environmental wisdom, which calls us to a grateful and responsible relationship with the natural world based on a deep being to being, person to plant, person to animal, reciprocity, as opposed to the rapacious approach that white folks, generally speaking, have been pursuing for these many centuries to this result. The question that Dr. Kimmerer asks is the land a source of belongings or a source of belonging? That's the fundamental question. She's a remarkable person. I really urge you to check her out. A member of the Potawatomi Nation, which is now located in Oklahoma, though they were originally from the Great Lakes area, which is where I grew up, an Eastern Woodlands tribe. They're now in Oklahoma, where, if you somehow missed it, the Supreme Court actually recently just declared that the U.S. actually had to be bound by the treaties it signed with Native peoples, which hasn't happened very often, like almost never, and that half of the state of Oklahoma is actually Indian land, a word which is still allowed to be used. I'm interested in Robin Kimmerer. I'm also interested in the Indigenous Environmental Network, the Earth Law Center, a group called Movement Rights, because they are interested in a legal concept that's gaining favor. I've spoken about it before, called the rights of Mother Nature, that tries to establish that the natural world itself, particular parts of it, rivers, lakes, watersheds, forests, actually have rights in and of themselves, independent of their usefulness to human beings. And there's enormous promise in this line of thinking, which is growing in how it's been accepted by courts, and offers so much promise for us finally shifting our legal relationship with nature. What I discovered is that for Indigenous leaders, the notion of rights for Mother Nature and rights for Indigenous people are one and the same. They cannot pull those two things apart. If an Indigenous group of folk live on a river, to protect that river that those people fish is to protect those people, and to protect those people who will conserve and steward, although that's not even the right word, live in harmony with, reciprocate relationally with the land. These things are one and the same. And that unity of identity has led some folks at the UN, for example, to describe Indigenous peoples as the best guardians of Mother Earth. They take the lead around the globe on protecting the environment because they thrive on living in harmony with their surroundings. And research has shown, this from the UN, that where Indigenous groups have control of the land, forests, so vital to addressing the problem of climate change and carbon sequestration, and biodiversity, which we animal lovers and bird lovers crave, flourishes. Now, unfortunately, Indigenous folks also share other things in common. They are more likely to be poor and vulnerable. They live shorter lives because of a lack of access to healthcare in many cases. And in so many countries, they must endure violence because they are frequently oppressed or repressed, partly because they don't want the mining company to come in. So any person, I would say, I'm coming to awareness, certainly myself, who cares about the earth, who loves nature, needs to care about the circumstances of native peoples too. The rights of Mother Earth and the rights of Indigenous people go hand in hand. And to support this, let me just offer a couple of quotes from a conference that was held called Protecting Mother Earth Conference. Michelle Bender, a writer, attended that, whom I read. This was hosted by the Nisqually people, the people of the river, the people of the grass, within their nation in Olympia, Washington, back in 2018, brought together 1,500 Indigenous leaders and activists and partners and allies. And at a plenary about the rights of Mother Nature there, she observed some interesting things. Quoting her now, again, "For indigenous peoples, rights of nature is almost an unnecessary concept, because for them the laws of Mother Earth and the connectedness and dependency of being is simple knowledge. Nature has always been our source, not a resource," she writes. "Nature has always had rights and always will. So why, they might ask, do we need this new system of law that tells us what we already know?" And she goes on to say, because modern law has lost sight of natural law. Our laws fail to acknowledge that humans are part of nature and that the Earth's system has limits. Rights of nature, therefore, will fix the inherent flaws in our legal systems. Another speaker there, Tom Goldtooth, who directs the Indigenous Environmental Network that I mentioned before, said exactly the same thing. We cannot have the recognition of our rights as Indigenous peoples if we do not recognize the rights of nature. And many other speakers said the same. What a wonderful grounding point. What a good starting block for the work to come. Nature. The people who live the closest to nature. And if we can listen to those things which are one thing, maybe we'll be able to find our way forward through this tumultuous time that is following the delectable birdsong of the great pause. Because, somewhere over there, on the other side of the virus and the other side of the fool in the White House, we still have to, make a massive transition to sustainable and renewable energy and deal with our changing climate and everything that might mean, both to Indigenous people and folks in the largest cities of the world. And my prayer is that the Great Pause gave us a little taste of those new ways of living that we have to achieve, less dependent upon cars, less dependent upon the profit motive, and less out of whack with the natural world. If our ears are open and we listen, our Indigenous siblings have so much to teach us, which is, again, the same thing as saying nature has so much to teach us. And those teachings are clear. We are part of an interconnected web. Every piece has its place in that web. Though the giant redwood may dominate our view, that beautiful, delicate green sorrel at its base is a necessary part of the system too. That in the real world, things are always evolving and changing. That sickness and death are inescapable, indeed necessary and inevitable parts of a creative unfolding whole, which doesn't mean we need to force them upon one another. Nature's morality is hard to penetrate, but we come out of nature, and our morality at its best and clearest and most universal is pretty straightforward. It's rooted in compassion, reciprocity, fairness, the granting of sentience and dignity and worth to one another, including to the plants and animals. The teachings of nature show us, I believe, that music and beauty are built right into the system, which means they're built into us, some of our most trustworthy guides. And of course, the natural world teaches us that there are no guarantees. If we are not careful, we might just go the way of, say, the passenger pigeon. We killed them off. We might just do the same to ourselves. And that simple, utterly simple, and totally universal, mystical, deeply spiritual teaching to be here now. What defines an Indigenous person as such is their intimate, inseparable relation to the actual environment where they are, their home, where every plant name is known, where how to extract a living from what is offered by nature is beautifully known. It's a kind of hyper-localism that I actually think the Great Pause has given us a taste for, and which, incredibly, technology such as this might enable us to truly achieve, or at least pursue. If we want to make a difference in the global approach to climate change, or the global approach to racial justice, or heck, even the county or the state approach, we need to focus here, now. My people, my place, my neighbors. A way of living that I call YIMBYism. It's the opposite of NIMBYism. Yes, in my backyard. Yes, right here, right now. If I really want to be a contributing member and at home in the great web or the great hoop of the world, I must find my place here. If I want to save the earth, maybe I need to save Sonoma County's rivers. If I want to achieve racial justice, I need to be an ally to Sonoma County's people of color and her indigenous people as well. I am determined now to live in greater awareness of the people and their teachings who are native to this land, the Miwok and the Pomo, to be grateful to their wisdom, to honor their sacrifice that allows me to live here in whatever this thing that's passing for civilization is now, and to be newly determined to listen, not just to the caw of the crow or the chickadee-dee-dee of the chickadee, but the roar of the ocean, the song of the waves, and to all the wise elders around me who remind me that everything, all of these, all that lives, is already and always my very closest relations, whom I am called to love and serve here and now, in this place that, if I let it, can give shape and meaning to my very self, to my very identity. And I pray that I may grow in that awareness and know and love it all. Thanks for listening.
poem by Mary Oliver, The Summer Day. Who made this world? Who made the swan and the black bear? Who made the grasshopper? This grasshopper, I mean, the one who has flung herself out of the grass, the one who is eating sugar out of my hand, who is moving her jaws back and forth instead of up and down, who is gazing around with her enormous and complicated eyes. Now she lifts her pale forearm and thoroughly washes her face. Now she snaps her wings open and floats away. I don't know exactly what a prayer is. I do know how to pay attention, how to fall down into the grass, how to kneel down in the grass, how to be idle and blessed, how to stroll through the fields, which is what I have been doing all day. Tell me, what else should I have done? Doesn't everything die at last and too soon? Tell me, what is your plan to do with your one wild and precious life?